Hello, my friends, and welcome to Perfect Practice. Today, I am excited because I'm interviewing somebody who's become a dear friend of mine over the years, Mr. Kashif Khan from the DNA company. Kashif has done so much to help me personally and my family, my wife, my son, and hundreds of patients that we care about and practitioners that we care about through genomics. And he's a very fascinating and interesting person because of the knowledge that he has. He can pick up on subtle details about who you are and how you will function and how you will behave and how you will respond based on your genomics. So this has been a very fascinating journey. I've been involved with their company for many years and also been a huge promoter of what they do because it allows us to know ourselves amazingly well. What I'm really excited about and what really prompted our conversation today, amongst many other things, is Kashif has a new book that is coming out and it should be out here in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited to help him get the message out there and share more about this influential piece of work because it's going to change literally thousands, if not millions of lives. The book is called The DNA Way: Unlock the Secrets of Your Genes to Reverse Disease, Slow Aging, and Achieve Optimal Wellness. I mean, I think all of us want a little bit more of that. And if we can use our genes and our genomics and the right laboratory analysis and the right interpreter to help us identify how to optimize these areas, we can create an amazing world and certainly an amazing lives for ourselves and the people that we care about. So without further ado, Kashif, thank you for joining me today. Appreciate you. I know how busy you are, and I always love our conversation. So I'm super excited for today.
Oh, sorry, I think it's still a pleasure. Good to be here. And thank you for setting this up.
Yeah, absolutely. I always learn a handful of new things. So I've got my notebook handy. So if you see me looking down, I'm not checking my phone. I'm literally making notes because you always say things that stick. So I love that about the way you communicate it. It must be in your genomics. I'm sure there's something in there that clues us into that. So I have a question that I want to ask you, and then this will kind of steer the conversation, and we'll just go down the rabbit hole together. And my question is: as busy as you are, and as um, you know spread out as you are in terms of your interests and all the things that you can do and get your hands into, all the work that goes to running a genomics company, all the research that's involved, managing all the people, managing the technology, staying up on the research, how the heck did you find time to write a book? This must be something super important to you to take,
Yeah.
to add this on top of all the things that you already do. So what inspired you to write this book?
So first of all, the time question, when you have to ask yourself that question, you actually realize how much time you have that
Mm,
you waste on other stuff. You can burn yourself out for sure. But anyways, the inspiration was as we went down this journey of we are a research company, we only talk to other healthcare companies. Now all of a sudden we're working with clinicians, yourself, and people that we met through you. And now we're working with consumers. And as we started to get to that, like people are buying DNA tests and calling us, and I'm getting all these messages on Instagram and emails like, wow, my life has changed. My child is normal again. My relationship is normal again. They're just almost call it a burden that everyone needs to know that this needs to be part of their toolkit. And I had to think about like, how do you do that? Because right now genetics is I'm 5% Nigerian, or you got an 80% chance of Alzheimer's, and that's kind of what people know. And that's not enough. That there's so much more, as you know, in practice. And I thought I had to write a book. I had to take my story to show how a layman who's not from this space, who does not have a science background, could take something highly complex and it could be my conduit to health. It truly was the tool that I used to understand why my body was broken, why it's no longer broken, how I healed various multiple chronic conditions, and how an algorithm and company was built on the back of it. So the book's purpose is if you don't have a DNA test in hand, if you've never read a lick of anything about a chromosome, it doesn't matter. It's just like how I needed it to be, easy to understand. Now all of a sudden this instruction manual that's in your body, you get how it works because you're seeing how I use it to heal myself.
hmm. I know you mentioned that, and without naming names or getting into specifics as much as you feel comfortable, but I know there was a family member that was impacted, that was very close to you, and that's one of the things that really inspired you early on to to spread this message far and wide. When you're writing a book, when you're running a company and you're writing a book, those can seem like two really different things, right? Because running a company, you're kind of go, go, go. Whereas writing a book, you gotta really sit down and
It's very different.
and it's totally switch gears, right? And put yourself into neutral. So knowing that, right? Because many people might be thinking like, man, how the heck do I do that? What I'd love to know is, how did understanding your genomics help you in writing this book? Knowing whatever you needed to know about yourself, executive function, how did you apply that to the process of writing the book?
I think knowing that is what made it possible, because it allowed me to create the structure to actually get it done. I wouldn't have gotten it done otherwise. I didn't understand myself even 5 years ago before I understood my genomics. And I understood some of the failures I had in other businesses. There was some great successes and some failures, and I now know why they happened. And so same thing with this, where I am highly reward seeking. So, and just like yourself, pleasure is hard, right? So it makes us strive for more. So that part wasn't difficult, the motivation. It was more the structure. How do I not pay attention to every text message? And because my serotonin pathway is completely dysregulated. So I'm highly sort of responsive to any stimulus. And it almost looks like ADHD from the outside, but what it is actually not attention deficit, it's hyperattention. I give everything attention that maybe doesn't even need it, right? And so I had to create structure where I didn't come home, right? There was a room that, think of anchoring, that felt like the writing room, that had nothing else other than my laptop, right? And there was a mood, there's no physical location, there was a cutoff from every potential stimulus, and it was scheduled and structured. And that's not the answer for everybody, but that was the answer for me. And that's where I go back to the first thing, where you have way more time than you think. Because what I would have been doing during that time is watching Netflix, which isn't bad, all the time, but doing it night after night. And I realized how much time I was spending doing that. Or here's the big thing. The other thing I would be doing during that time is catching up on emails from the day, right? And I realized what little percentage of that actually should have been coming to me. That I was enabling people by access and saying, yeah, I'll talk to everybody. And so everybody wanted to talk to me. Whereas the majority of those problems, we had a team to solve them already. Right? And in fact, they could probably solve them better than me. And most of my emails were, let me connect you to this person. Right? So creating that sort of boundary removed this chunk of work that I was doing that was completely unnecessary to begin with. And that became my writing time.
I love that. So did you hire an assistant to help you with the emails, or what was the workaround there?
No, it was literally, first of all, sitting with the team, our entire team, and saying, we have a plague of reply all and forward, right? If I have no action to take, you're doing your job. And the reason why you're here is because I value that you're so good at your job that I don't need to ask you what you're doing every 5 minutes. So if you keep seeing me on every single email you're doing, I already honor and respect and have confidence in you, right? That's why you're here. So I don't need to know what you're doing. I just need to know when you need my support.
Right.
Right. And same thing with clients. There's all these great people in our team that know how to solve your problem better than me. When my laptop is broken, I don't call Bill Gates, right? I go to the store.
I don't even think he could help you.
He would have no clue. He might answer if I had a cell phone number, but he's going to direct me to the right person. And that's what was going on. And there's a part of whatever you're doing, whether it's relationship, business, whatever, you reach this threshold where eventually you realize the support is there for a reason. Right. And everybody can't be good at everything. And I'm not good at everything. I'm good at what I do. I'm not good at administering certain things. I'll actually fail and fall apart there, which is why I needed to create the structure on the book. Otherwise I knew I wanted to do it. So that was a big learning thing for me. And it was learning for the whole team. And it reduced the stress, by the way, on the whole team, because everybody's email load went down.
And here we thought we'd be talking about genetics, but it ties back because that self-awareness and understanding of yourself allows you to then set up the circumstances in your personal life, in your professional life, and in your business to maximize your success, right? So if anybody's listening to this, I mean, I can certainly relate to some of those, things that you're talking about. Is sometimes I'll feel like, oh, I'm more productive because I'm answering emails instead of watching TV. But how many
Yeah.
of those emails should I actually be answering in the first place? So you've actually inspired me to actually strongly consider hiring a personal assistant that literally
Yeah.
handles my scheduling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Because I know that some people may not know this, but you and I have very similar genomics. We
Yes.
oftentimes get mistaken for one another. I've gone to countless conferences and people come out to me, start telling me about their genes. I'm like, wait a minute, I think I know who you're talking about. I can probably help you, but I think I know
Yeah.
who you actually think I am. So we have a lot of similarities in our personalities. So I love talking to you because in many ways it's like talking to someone who has very similar executive function, reward, and pleasure seeking,
Yeah.
behaviors. So
It's like therapy.
yeah. So that's why I'm asking, because I want to sit down and write a book, and I'm like, man, like, where am I going to fit that into my schedule? So let me ask
Yeah.
Kashif, like, what
So
genetic traits
here's
can
the
be
genetic
helpful?
side of it, by the way, which we didn't talk about. You know yourself, and I know myself. We're similar. There's everybody else, right? So we uniquely in our team think about each other genetically because we're a genetic company, and so we know how everybody's executive function and brain is and how it works. And so that answer of toned down emails, the way that happens isn't the same for everybody, right? So for some people, that's grossly anxiety inducing. Like, I can't let go of this habit that I have. It literally is giving me pain. And we know who those people are. It's the opposite of us, the people that have a very high dopamine expression, a very slow neurochemical clearance that don't like change, right? And then there's
Mm,
people that have not the best brain drive neurotropic factor. So they're not really good at developing new neural pathways and learning new skills. Once they do, they're amazing. Picture the scientist, the person that's like, I do this thing better than anybody, but let me shift to here. I can't even start. I'll fumble and stumble.
mm,
So you also have to understand, here's new policy, right? It's not going to just work that way for everybody. So one of the keys, or the key to genetics, is personalization. Deliver it to me in the way that I need it, starting with executive function, starting with the way I think. And you
mm.
probably already know this about the people around you, whether it's your kids or your spouse or your team. You already know how they behave. Don't force them to behave like you. That's who they are. So give it to them in the way they need it if you want this to actually work. Right. And that's part of how we laid this out. I didn't talk to everybody in the same way.
Mm. Yeah, it's so important. We talk about that on a side note, but on the same topic is learning people's behavior styles. And
Yeah.
of course, our behavior comes from our executive function and, of course, our chemistry, how we feel, right? Because that
Yeah.
reinforces certain behavior patterns and changes and reluctance or acceptance of new policies and change in structure. So thank you for sharing that. And that's helpful, right? So anyone who's listening to this who might be a practitioner or somebody's listening to this who's trying to get buy-in from their clients, like understanding how to communicate to that person is crucial because it may not be the way you want to be communicated to. And that's something certainly we encourage as well. And it's cool that we can see it genetically. Knowing people, we can understand how to communicate more
Yeah.
effectively. And that's why I feel like a test like this can be so valuable for a family to get. It's one thing for a team to get it, but
Yeah.
I also think it's great for families to get it. So even if you're not operating a business, you're listening to this and you're wondering, how can this help me? Well, the way it helped me understand my wife better, help me understand my son better, help them understand me better.
Yeah.
So they could articulate and communicate in a way that was most effective. So yeah, there's lots of applications to having this self-awareness. What I'd love to know, Kashif, is how is the book laid out? So if somebody grabs their copy, which I highly encourage them to do, how is this book laid out that makes it easy for them to understand these concepts and apply them?
So that's the funny thing, is I just went to town saying what I thought needed to be said, and organically was laid out. And it literally is two sections. The first is, what's the problem? Our healthcare system sucks. It's not really a system. It's, especially if you're in the US, we're in Canada right now, so it's a little different, but the US is even worse. And so it was more helping people understand why they can't be dependent on something that's so broken, right? Regardless of what it is, whatever you're dealing with, from a simple hair loss issue, which you're now witnessing in front of you, to all the way to something like breast cancer, right? It's just not a great system to work on. And the second half, the majority of the book, is going through each of the key body systems and how literally exposing my personal genome. Here's who I am. Here's what problems I had, and here's how I fix them. Because if I can do it, I haven't had one day of technical training on this stuff. We built our own training to teach people, right? So if I was able to do that coming from a completely different industry, I think everybody can. And so that's why the book was laid out. There's a whole chapter just on executive function, all of what we've been talking about. There's a whole chapter of what's wrong with my brain and what's right with my brain. And the key learning there, as an example, what the way we think independently. If I take executive function as an example and how the brain works, what we learned is all these words like anxiety, depression, addiction, burnout, procrastination are all contextual. The same thing, the same neurochemical wiring that may drive to your superpower can also drive you to your kryptonite, depending what context you're in. And that's the majority of what we're dealing with today. The words like anxiety and depression, like I said. So when you learn how you're wired, you also learn what you are wired for. What job are you designed to do? What is your purpose here, right? And if you start doing that thing, you're going to thrive. You're going to excel. You and me are wired to be entrepreneurial and to build things, but we also need support and structure around us, which is why we have amazing teams that do that stuff, right? The opposite is also true for other people. So when you start to learn that the exact same thing that leads to words like depression and addiction also leads to words like achievement. The same thing that leads to words like PTSD and trauma can also lead to emotional intelligence and reading the room and being able to be deeply analytical, right? So it depends what context you're in. That's one small example. That chapter dives deep into how I did that for myself. Then we talk about sleep, chronic disease and why they're for the most part preventable. Everything about the immunity of the cell and cellular health, which is where everything starts. 14 of our top 15 killers are all rooted in inflammation. And so if you get rid of that one thing, which means promote cellular health, they can't exist, all of those diseases. And then the last one is diet nutrition. So my personal sort of journey discovering how my body metabolizes certain macro and micronutrients, why I need to shift the way I eat it, why my gut didn't protect me from certain toxins that other people's guts did, and why I would feel horrible when other people didn't with the exact same food. Again, personalization is key. So that's kind of what it looks like. A little bit of here's what's broken and a lot of here's how you can fix it.
I love that. It seems like it'll give us a good insight into, how your body works, but also a good insight into how our body works.
For sure.
What's like a great case study that you'd like to share? Certainly you can pull from some of your life experiences, but what would somebody who's reading this, like who did you write this book for? I know you've written it for everyone, but is there anyone specific in mind that you wrote this book for? Like if you were sitting there and trying to picture who's reading this, who would that be? And what would you hope for them to get out of the book and walk away with?
There was somebody I was picturing, and it wasn't a sex or an age. It was more like a stage. Somebody who is done with navigating the healthcare system and wants to start understanding functional medicine, biohacking, integrated medicine, how they become their own quarterback. So the biohacker probably already knows a lot of this stuff, right? That sort of pre-biohacker, the person that's just figuring out, oh, there's something better. Can somebody guide me? And I believe understanding your genomics is the foundation to everything they're going to do. Like every choice you're going to make, what tool do I use? What supplement do I buy? It's all driven by how your body works. So it was written for that person that's like, whether they're a naturopath or a personal trainer or a stay-at-home mom that listens to podcasts, like I want to know more. I think one day I might be a biohacker. It's for that person, right? And so anecdotally, the biggest area where I see we have the most impact is typically in female hormone health. And not just because we know stuff, it's also because that area is so broken. Like it needs the most fixing, right? If you ask any woman about her experience at the doctor, it's usually, yeah, your hormones are supposed to cause you problems. Good luck, take this pill, right? And whereas it could be very smooth sailing if you understood your hormone cascade and what your genes were doing with your hormones. So as an example, somebody from our own team who then decided to work with us because of the work we did with them. This person did investment sales and built, $100 million plus investment fund with her partner, but was very sick with endometriosis. Right. So this was going on. And by the way, she was only in her, like, I'd say mid-30s. So, and this has been going on for years. She had gone from doctor to doctor to doctor, pill to pill to pill, and it was just getting worse. Oh, we looked at her genome, and I said, I'm not looking for the endometriosis gene, right? And that's genetics, and I don't believe that's the way to apply this stuff. What I'm looking for is, put your problem aside. I'm just looking for the red flags. What jobs does your body not do well? And how does that then lead to the problem you're dealing with? Because not everyone's going to get down the same path of problem, but they may come from the same central hub. So when I looked at her red flags, what I see? Highly estrogen dominant. So she makes a little bit too much estrogen. She, first of all, made too much testosterone, progesterone to testosterone a little too fast, flowing back into estrogen a little too fast. So way too much estrogen. She also, as a metabolite of her estrogen, went rapidly into the 4-hydroxy pathway, which is a toxic metabolite. She also was lacking most of the key detox functions that cleared that metabolite. She also didn't have the best epigenetic habits in terms of understanding hormone disruption, Teflon-coated frying pans, chemicals, pesticides, didn't know that stuff. So you had someone who had the wrong genetic wiring in terms of their hormones. They were making the wrong type of hormone was toxic. They didn't have the right genetic wiring in terms of how to clear that toxin they were making, and they were overloading themselves with the choices they made every day. So as opposed to being sort of diagnosed and prescribed, we said, let's go to the hub and let's block your estrogen conversion with simple supplements, aromatase inhibitors that slow down this estrogen conversion, and let's support your detox to get rid of that drip of toxicity you're making every month. She started feeling better immediately. Right? She didn't have a thing called, symptomology, endometriosis. That's what it equaled. That's 5, 6, 10 years after your body fought and fought and fought and fought, where finally something breaks. The real problem was her biology was not matched to her environment and her choices. That was only understood by looking at, what is your biology? Well, your genes drive that. Right. So she no longer has this condition, which she probably would have progressively got worse and worse and worse with as she aged. Simple anecdote where once you look at it, it's so easy, but looking at it from symptom or disease backwards, it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying to figure out from analyzing river water where the water came from. Right? Yeah. Like, how are you going to figure that out? It's almost impossible unless you go like further upstream and do an analysis and say, hey, like, here's where the pollutants are coming in, or here's where the problem is stemming from. So you're going upstream, upriver, and really, like, environment and genomics and that interface and interaction is so vitally crucial. And when we do lab tests, we're essentially measuring what happens when those two worlds collide. And what the testing is doing is it's helping us understand, okay, what happens when those two worlds collide, and how can we make, the interface between those two things such that it doesn't produce disease, illness, dysfunction, emotional challenges, spiritual challenges, and all the other things that come along with that. That's exactly. Yeah, that's amazing to be able to do that. And how would you say, like, for a practitioner who's watching this, how would you wish for them to incorporate genomics and the work that your company is doing into their, traditional protocols? Yeah, so I think there's a couple different ways, because we also understand that there's a couple different ways practitioners practice, right? So there's people that have programs. I'm the Lyme disease specialist. I'm the breast cancer specialist. I come to me. This is what I do. So what we believe we can do there is make that program better. When it comes to Lyme disease, or any of these things we're working with, there's always a little bit of trial and error. When you specialize in something, you're probably going to be better at delivering the service than most, but there's still this little bit of trial and error. There's a little bit of variability of why is not working as well on that person as it worked on everybody else, right? So that detective work, that underlying, they just do this job a little differently.
maybe they don't methylate that well, and so they experience inflammation at a higher level than the average person. So the same input just causes them a bigger problem, right?
Mm.
So now all of a sudden you can personalize that program, and the efficacy goes way up. Everybody gets that 100%, as opposed to those stragglers that feel like this failed. Then there's the other practitioner, which is come to me for whatever you need, book your hour, book your 2 hours, and it becomes this foundational tool where every time your patient comes back to you with whatever it is they're dealing with at that time, you don't need to go again through trial and error, one size fits all, and disease or symptom back. You can start with their human blueprint. Here's what your body does. Here's how it's related to that problem. And again, efficacy goes way up. So either that product you've built, this program, becomes more effective and more personalized, or your time with the patient becomes so much more powerful and you become more effective, and all of a sudden word of mouth and referrals and like, wow, this person changed my life, especially the people that are stuck. And who goes to functional medicine and naturopathy and integrated medicine is the people that got stuck in traditional healthcare. People always start with what's normal, right? Quote unquote, I'm going to go to my doctor. It's when they get stuck and fail that they go elsewhere. So they're typically more complex and challenging to begin with, right? So it's to have more tools to unwind and peel back the onion and figure out like what's really going on and fix it right away. It completely changes who you are in their eyes and the referrals and all that, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've certainly bought into the work that you're doing. I've promoted this to as many practitioners as I possibly can, because I feel like it gives us really an unfair advantage, but a necessary advantage to help people get well, because we have an obligation to them. And, the way I look at genomics, it's kind of like understanding what type of car you are,
Mm.
and then coming to somebody who's able to identify, hey, you're an SUV, you're a sports car, and then helping you understand where there's nothing wrong with you, but where are you optimized, right? So if you're, let's say you're a sports car and I'm an SUV, right? The tires are going to be different, the rims are going to be different, the suspension is going to be different, and it's going to be unique, and you're going to need unique parts to optimize, and a unique environment where an SUV is optimized versus where a sports car is optimized. So it gives people that unique ability to dive so much deeper and then have a lifelong plan. So one of the things that I love about genomic testing is that, unless I'm mistaken, it's a test that you only ever take once. I mean, there's always updates and things like that that you guys offer, but you only really take the test once, and then that information is actionable, over the course of your lifetime. But the test actually becomes more valuable over your lifetime, because we're learning more and more and more about how this all interfaces together. So it's a unique opportunity for people to understand themselves, but also to create a health blueprint moving forward, and really a timeless process for them to achieve health.
Yeah, and we've been in this for a few years now, so we've seen exactly what you just said, where the same person who came in year one, year two for the particular issue is now going back to the same genomic data to solve a different problem, right? So it's your genes don't change. So your context may change, your age may change, the problems you're dealing with may change. You keep going back to the same set of data to solve a new problem. So it's just sort of keeps giving back to you. The only time, to your point, where it may change is if we have new insights, but you're not running anything or buying another product. You're just logging into your portal and finding new things that you didn't find before. So every time we learn, we keep updating it, and so it just keeps improving over time. We feel like now that we're bringing some AI tools in, it's going to exponentially change and make it better, so that everybody will keep getting that benefit, as time passes.
Yeah, that's a pretty exciting time to be alive, to have
Yeah.
access and in an affordable way to our genomic profile. And then, of course, with AI, I mean, there's obviously constructive ways that we could use this technology to help us learn faster, and for you guys to generate even more amazing reports than the ones you already generate, and give insights that would be difficult to do for the average person.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Well, I always enjoy our conversations. And what I'd love to know is, what message do you have for people uh, who are, out there, who are just maybe struggling with their health, maybe not even struggling with their health, but want to maximize their health potential? Basically, what do you want to tell the audience who you wrote this book for?
Well, I think the intention behind the book was to teach people that anybody can be their own health quarterback. up until 5 years ago, I'm 43 now. This 38 is when I got sick with a bunch of, it's in the book, you'll see. I detail my problems. I had zero even interest in my health other than going to the gym, and zero knowledge whatsoever, and it went from that to healing myself. Only because the answer I kept asking when I was going to these multiple doctors, taking multiple pills, why is this happening? Right? That was literally it didn't make any sense to me. Why all of a sudden at one time do I have eczema, psoriasis, migraines, crazy gut issues, depression? Why all at the same time? They must be related. What did I do wrong? And I couldn't get that answer. And that's when I thought, hey, this system doesn't really work. Like, they're just trying to mask this thing and make the pain go away, but they're not helping me figure out what I did wrong. And that set me on this journey of figuring it out myself. So the message is, it's not empowerment. It's just easy. You can do it. The information is there. The access to information today, unlike any other time in history, it's right in front of you. Right. And now the tools like this, the genome test, which is, a few $100s. When we started our research, it was thousands of dollars. There's a clinic in California that was selling our program for $100,000 to all these CEOs of these Silicon Valley companies. So not only has the cost come way down, the information has gone way up. Your ability to access people like you and podcasts, etc. So just take charge. Become your own health quarterback. I did it. I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the room. I just had a need and desire. It was stoked by a desperate need, and I did it. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. So I hope that the book inspires you. That you will see that how possible it is, and you'll also see a path. You'll see that what I did may resonate certain areas, like, oh, this is me, this is me, this is not me, but now I get the opposite may be me. So it will lay out a bit of a path for you and make things easy. And then start looking at the right tools and services to do it yourself.
Yeah. And if I had a message for everyone, it would be get tested. Get to, if you want to self-actualize, which is, I think, what Kashif's goal is for you. It's what my goal is for all of our listeners. Then you have to become self-aware first. And the first path to, progress starts by telling ourselves the truth. And what greater truth than understanding who we are and understanding how we can optimize our environment to express ourselves in the most beautiful way possible. And so thank you, Kashif, for making this knowledge so, available to the public. And what a great time to be alive to be able to access this valuable knowledge at a fraction of what it used to cost, and to be able to help people as practitioners, but also for those people who are listening who are looking for answers. This might be the answer to the answer to the prayers that you've had over these years to find out really what can be done to help you feel your absolute best. So kudos to you, my friend. Thank you for having the self-awareness and the self-actualization of writing this book and sharing your story so generously. And thank you for your time today. And I'm wishing you absolute amazing success in getting this message out there, and happy to play whatever part I can. And this is just the beginning.
Thank you so much, man. Love working with you.